All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. It has been a dreary, dreary week here on Rocky Top. It's rainy, it's cold, but it's amazing. Like, I'm on campus every day, getting ready to wrap up my last week as a graduate student at the #1 school in the nation. Tennessee basketball taking care of business. Tennessee football, when things are going really well at your university, guess what? Your coaches get picked off. People want to take from the premier rising university. You have Dabo on the Orange Bowl press conference being like, we got to score 35. Like, this is Tennessee's back. Like, this feels like 98. Fulmer, all this. Like, we're in for a big challenge. And that's from one of the two best coaches in the sport. And it's just, you lose track of all the different things going in Tennessee's direction. You get a tight end coming in from UC Davis. Coach Hawkins has done great work with him, 6'6". He played basketball, which is always a great sign for any kind of big tight end. We'll see if the shorter kid comes in. There's not enough room, really, at this point to fit a class that is top 10 in the 2023 rankings. The NIL dollars are flowing. The portal, we have so many people in and out that we just cannot keep track of how many people want to be a Tennessee Volunteer. But the vibes are good, even if Heisman voters try their hardest to keep the vibes down. Matt Green, how are you?
Was this a bit? Are you done? What was this? what was that? What just happened?
Pretty good.
Yeah. So now we got our Rocky Top update. I think we can get on to things. But how are you doing this lovely evening, sir?
I'm good, man. A lot of vitriol on Twitter.com this week, though, about Hendon Hooker and his Heisman candidacy. Heupel, being the good dude that he is, going to bat hard for him. A lot of Tennessee players were upset. Even five-star Nico Iamaleava coming on campus. He was voicing his support for Hendon Hooker being a Heisman finalist. A lot of people were pretty dismayed here about Hendon Hooker not being a Heisman finalist. And look, I don't think Hendon Hooker should have won the Heisman, but there's a couple problems with the Heisman right now. 4 quarterbacks in the Final Four is ridiculous. Like, that tells me that this award has lost all of its meaning, where it's not the best quarterback award. That is not what this award was ever supposed to be. And the 4 best players in the country are not all quarterbacks. And a lot of this turned to Stetson versus Hendon obviously winning SEC Player of the Year. And the SEC Player of the Year does not go to New York, but the SEC not Player of the Year, the best story basically that he won, Stetson, the other day, where it's like the walk-on turn, great player, whatever they call that award. He got that.
The Bullsworth.
Yeah. It's great. But look, a lot of takes on Hendon Hooker. And look, a lot of Tennessee fans are upset about Hendon not going and Stetson going. Look, this is tough. Stetson has had a great year. Stetson has been exceptional in big games. Probably the best thing about Stetson Bennett is the fact that he rises to the occasion and plays his best when he is in the biggest moments. Like, that is a huge overlooked part of Stetson Bennett's game. But a lot of people were like, oh, well, Hendon Hooker and what kind of game he had against Georgia when everything was on the line. He struggled. Georgia shut him down. They leave out Stetson, obviously, struggling against Mizzou. Stetson struggling against Kentucky. Stetson struggling against Kent State. Like, he had his down game. He had a couple this year. He had 6 picks. And then Hooker, almost 60 touchdowns to 2 interceptions over the course of 2 years. More efficient. Definitely more downfield attacks from Hendon Hooker. Just the downfield assault with Jalen Hyatt and company this year. Tennessee finished number 1 in scoring offense in the country. Number one in scoring in the regular season. It wasn't Georgia. It wasn't Alabama. It wasn't any of these other universities. It was the Tennessee Volunteers. They had the best offense in the country. That happened. They're like, oh, they shouldn't have lost to South Carolina. Offense wasn't the problem. If you were watching that game, Tennessee was in that game in the fourth quarter. The defense gave up 9 of 10 possessions were touchdowns. 9 of 10. You weren't winning that game no matter what kind of offensive production that was. And if you go back through and watch that game, Tennessee was cooking South Carolina's defense over and over again. They'd eventually just stop running the football because the defense could not stay on the field and get a stop. Like they couldn't do it. So that game changed. But Hendon Hooker was cooking before he got injured in the fumble and torn his ACL and all that. All that being said, I'm not going to pick on Stetson Bennett being a finalist. I don't have a problem with him being it because I think it would have been weird for the best team in the country not to have a representative in New York. I think that would have been a really, really strange thing. That being said, there were better choices on the University of Georgia to send to New York. The player they should have sent is Jalen Carter. Like the guy who's chokeslamming Jalen Daniels in the SEC title game. The guy who single-handedly disrupted the Tennessee game. Like you talk about Hendon Hooker's rough day in Athens. It was Jalen Carter eating Javonte Spraggins at the guard spot alive all day long, where Hendon Hooker was just getting destroyed by Jalen Carter. He changed the entire game. Jalen Carter changes games for Georgia. Like he is, I mean, he might be the number one pick in the draft next year. Like Jalen Carter is the one you send, but because it's like we have this weird obsession with sending the quarterbacks and sending offense in the sport, my bigger issue is it's like we all know Stetson's not the most valuable player on his team. Hendon Hooker was the most valuable player on Tennessee this year. Hendon Hooker was the engine that moved this thing, like the confidence, everything that he was doing, the checks, and just getting this offense moving, making sure the tempo was all working. Hendon Hooker was the heart and soul. Georgia, it's a collection, it's a machine, but it still is a defense that just what they do in the trenches buries teams. And it just, I don't know how you don't send Jalen Carter. I don't even know how you don't send Brock Bowers, who when you watch Georgia's offense, you're like, oh, Brock Bowers is the best player on this offense. Like Brock Bowers should get the ball 18 times a game. Like he's your Travis Kelce, George Kittle. Like he should have gone to New York before Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett's a great player who's had a great year, and I'm not going to kill the kid for it. I just think the voters got it wrong in terms of who they sent from Georgia. I just think you could have sent Hooker and also not sent CJ Stroud, what was his big moment? What was CJ Stroud's biggest moment all year long with the amount of weapons, with their expectations, with where Ohio State's supposed to be? I mean, I don't know how you send him to New York other than, well, before the year we had him as the number one pick in the draft. He's been fine, and he's gotten the ball to Marvin Harrison enough, and it's Ohio State. So we're sending somebody there. I don't know how you don't give it to Hendon Hooker because we saw the big game wins. They lost their big game to Michigan. Hendon Hooker beat Alabama. He went toe-to-toe. He had those two insane throws with barely any time left. Drove down the field, put the Tennessee in a position to hit that knuckleball field goal. Hooker had the moments all season long. And I think when you look and remember back to this season, part of what the Heisman should be is, okay, who were the biggest impact players? Who will we remember this particular season by? I'll remember Jalen Carter this year from Georgia. I'll remember Hendon Hooker. I'll remember Blake Corum from Michigan and what he was doing week in, week out, running the football. I'll remember, let's see, who else? Max Duggan and him just giving his life to beat Kansas State and his legs just going out and just everything that he was doing to keep TCU alive week over week. That should be a big part of it.
But from that perspective, Stetson Bennett does fit that mold of like telling the story of the 2022 season. That narrative stuff is part of why he is here. So I don't disagree with a lot of what you said. I think I feel like more of the outrage should be Hendon Hooker instead of CJ Stroud, kind of like you said. And Jalen Carter and Brock Bowers, like I don't disagree with one word you said about them. Jalen Carter is just an absolute game wrecker. But what I think is being a little bit lost is how good Stetson's actually been. Like, it's not just a feel-good story because he's a walk-on and he's the number one quarterback on the number one team. Well, I mean, for that matter, like, when do we start getting outraged about the quarterback on the number one team getting too much hype? That's what I want to know. Like, this is not a new thing. I'm just over here like, yeah, now it's Stetson's turn to get too much hype. So you better keep that same energy you had with AJ McCarron and with, you know, the Ken Dorsey's of the world. Ken Dorsey finished third and fifth in the Heisman back-to-back years, and his numbers weren't nearly as good as Stetson's, honestly. Even comparatively, because he threw a lot more interceptions. Obviously, people throw more touchdowns these days, but looking at Stetson's numbers, like you said, like yeah, he struggled in certain games and that sort of thing. But like, it's kind of more of what Georgia does. Like the Kentucky game, like CJ Stroud had his Northwestern game where it was raining, it was windy, like there was really nothing the offense could do. I feel like that kind of explains more the Kentucky game. Missouri, the offense struggled. I don't feel like Stetson necessarily struggled in that game, but because what gets lost on you saying kind of like CJ Stroud or Hendon Hooker is the most valuable player for Tennessee, right? Like Stetson Bennett had 70 more attempts this year than than Hendon Hooker. Like he had almost 400 attempts. Like I think what gets lost is how second in the SEC in yards is how much Georgia actually threw the ball because of the people noticed the 20 touchdowns. But like I told you and Seth Emerson went into, there was at least 10 plays this year where Georgia had 20, 30 yard. I think there was an 80-yard reception to Kenny McIntosh against Georgia Tech where he got tackled at the 2. There was one against for McConkey against LSU on Saturday where right before halftime where he broke that like 30-yard. It would have been a 30-yard touchdown. He gets tackled at the 1. Like there's just been a lot of those plays that kind of, and then Georgia gets inside the 1 and they punch it in. Once or twice, it's probably led to a Stetson touchdown run, but I think people kind of focus on the touchdowns. They're like, oh yeah, he's just a game manager. The offense isn't really that.
You
big
call him
of
a game
part
manager. You don't watch. You've literally never watched a snap.
Well, maybe not even saying game manager, but you're just saying the passing offense. The offense is running the ball. What Stetson does isn't that big of a contributor. It's like this team is way more pass heavy in the first half than they are run heavy. Like you look at the second half. I totaled his second half attempts this year. He has 123 attempts in the second half this year. That's 31% of his total attempts in the second half of games. There's only one game this year where he had double-digit attempts in the fourth quarter. He had 33 attempts in the fourth quarter this season. Like that's 8% of his total attempts. Like Georgia's smashing most of the teams they play. Like he's throwing for a lot of yards. He's second in the SEC in yards. They're smashing basically everyone they play and then running the ball for most of the second half. So I think people kind of get lost in how good he actually has been, and not to mention he's a dynamic like dual threat too. This guy makes plays with his legs. He's got 7 rushing touchdowns on the year. He's had a couple of those highlight reel plays too, like the one against Tennessee and the run against South Carolina and the one against Mississippi State where he just straight juked a guy out of his shoes right in the hole. Like he's had some of those highlight reel plays, not to mention just he fits the perfect formula. Like he is the quarterback on the number 1 team, and he has a great story, but it gets kind of lost on how good he's actually been this year.
Well, I'd also say it's like, and this isn't a Stetson problem. This is just a product of being the best recruiting team in the country, recruiting and developing team in the country. Because it's one thing to be the best recruiting team. Shout out to Texas A&M. It's another thing to actually develop and sustain that level of talent influx. It's just, if you put in Joe Milton for every Hendon Hooker game this year, Tennessee's never number 1 in CFP. Like that's never happening. They're never going like just what they were. It's not happening. You put Carson Beck in for Stetson, you're probably still undefeated. That's something that I struggle with too. Is just that like you watched every game in your heart of hearts. Do you think any result is different if it's Carson Beck instead of Stetson Bennett this year?
I mean, I just think it's really hard to say. Like Carson Beck's a guy who hasn't really gotten any meaningful snaps. Like, am I confident like next year if Carson Beck's the guy like that he's ready to take over and lead Georgia? Like I am. But in terms of just saying this team doesn't miss a beat, it's kind of hard to say.
Do you think they lose a game? Is there a game that's flipped with Carson Beck instead of Stetson?
I mean, I guess it's hard to say just because they did go undefeated and they won a lot of games by a wide margin. But yeah. Stetson is also part of the reason they won some of those games by a large margin. Because I think what he does off schedule, I think, is what's so kind of just an X factor about him. Because I think there was a lot of plays where down the stretch, and I remember me and my brother kind of constantly, because it was just such a storyline with JT Daniels versus Stetson, that I think that first or second touchdown, I think the second touchdown Georgia scored against Tennessee, where Stetson avoids the sack and then gets it's like a 10-yard touchdown run, and it's just like JT Daniels isn't making that play. Like Georgia might have might have been able to beat a lot of teams with JT Daniels, but there was just certain plays that Stetson made that were like, his legs are a legitimate threat. So Carson Beck looks athletic, but I don't know that I don't think he's the runner.
Part
that
of it
Stetson
is like you trust Todd Monken though, right? You're like Todd Monken probably
absolutely
and schemes it up enough to go 12-0 all over again.
I mean, at this point, I won't rule anything out.
Like I'm just saying, Josh Heupel could not have done what he wanted to do this year with Joe Milton versus.
At the same time, I mean, to Graham Coffey's point, I know you were going to bring that up at some point.
Also, friend of the pod, Graham, don't get mad. This is not me picking on you, or like this is it is a very fair assessment of your take.
Well,
but go ahead.
Graham Coffey, we'll just reference it. Says, and I'm not going this deep with it, but the reason Hendon Hooker wasn't a Heisman finalist is the same reason Bryce Petty and Nick Florence weren't. The Baylor offense that Heupel runs is a cheat code for QB stats. The numbers are big until they see a team with cornerbacks who can press cover and freeze point happens. So, well, I'm not going to go that far with it. Because as far as I'm concerned, Bryce Petty, I mean, what did he finish? He had to finish like 6th or 7th in the Heisman or something that year, right? I'm sure he had a great year. But there is an element to this is a very quarterback-friendly offense. This is a very just modern, cheat code offense, whatever you want to call it, that potentially you could plug another quarterback in here and not miss a beat. That's kind of one of the problems I have with Tennessee getting penalized for Hooker being hurt right now in the playoff rankings is because you really don't know if Joe Milton couldn't just be a plug and play. Like, there's nothing at Virginia Tech that would tell you that Hendon Hooker was going to be this good, just like there was nothing at Michigan that told you that
the
tells you Joe Milton's going to be
for a
good.
Little bit. Joe was bad.
I mean, for a couple games, for sure, but he's also had some time in Heupel's offense as well. You never know. And this offense is also kind of a more well-oiled machine than it once was. But let's get off on a tangent. But I don't know. I think.
And the thing I'll say, well, let me say this about
ahead.
the Graham tweet. He is giving Heisman voters way too much credit because there is not. Let me just say this with absolute certainty. There is a 0% chance. I said that really Southern. That was
Brian Kelly over here.
Oh my goodness, that was a huge Southern slip there. No, the reason that just completely
0% chance.
Yeah, 0% chance that this is not that was not on any Heisman voter's brain. Like, they are not thinking Bryce Petty and Nick Florence really flourish in this offense, so we got to keep Hendon Hooker out. It's not that deep. They weren't thinking.
But you could be saying he's just a product of the system.
But then
that's essentially what you're saying.
What is CJ Stroud then?
What is CJ Stroud? I don't know.
Are we not? When was the last Ohio State quarterback that struggled in that system?
I think that's a valid point. I don't think CJ Stroud should be here, especially with how he kind of played in the two big games they played all season.
Are we penalizing Tim Tebow for succeeding in the Urban Meyer, Dan Mullen offense? Like, what does that even mean? Because we've seen Joe Milton struggle in this offense. We've seen, it still asks a lot out of the quarterback. You've got to be efficient. You got to be good with tempo. You've got to be smart and get through your reads quickly. You've got to, it's not this easy, just anybody can do this. Harrison Bailey transferred and is not starting at UNLV this year. And he was a talented 4 or 5 star kid coming into Tennessee. He couldn't handle it. He was a Jim Chaney recruit, couldn't handle the Tennessee scheme. There are all kinds of quarterbacks all around the country that could not handle what Josh Heupel throws at these quarterbacks. I think it's downplaying that, and I don't think it's fair to penalize quarterbacks for thriving in... I don't like QB-friendly schemes. I think it's just more of maybe, how can we best put this? Like the Western Kentucky type, like the Bailey Zappi from last year, where it's I would penalize them more because it's you're playing G5 competition, and I don't think he's doing any of that kind of stuff against an SEC schedule. But Hendon's doing this against SEC defenses and just lighting them up. Kentucky's defense was good. Alabama's defense was good, and they were still lighting them up. Other programs can try this, other quarterbacks can try this, and they can fall flat on their face. We've seen it. We just penalize the ones when they're actually good in this game.
I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily true. Because I don't think anyone was really penalizing him. Because like you said, Tebow was a was a Heisman winner, you know?
Yeah.
So
well, what I'm saying is we shouldn't ever do it, is my point. Is like we should never penalize someone for thriving in a scheme.
And at the end of the day, I think you're right, because people judge their performance however it happened. I think maybe with like someone like Mike Leach, you know, after a while you start to be like, yeah, I mean, how good is that guy? All these quarterbacks do that.
So then are we giving it to Caleb Williams? Like Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley? Like
no, that's true. No, and so at the end of the day, like what I was going to say is I don't think that's really going into the voters' minds. It's a formula. And let's be honest, this was a down year for the Heisman. Like if Stetson had those like 7 or 8 touchdowns that like I've talked about, like he could have, like had guys not gotten tackled the 1 or 2, he'd be a lock to win the Heisman. Like because of the narrative and the stats would actually match, and he's on the best team and everything, like it wouldn't even be close. Like,
oh, I have a take for you.
With every of these candidates that it's been like his to lose or his to lose, like it's Bryce Young's to lose, basically, right? They lose 2 games. Okay, it's Hooker's to lose. They lose 2 games. It's Stroud or Corum's to lose. Like Corum doesn't play, Stroud loses. Caleb Williams, Max Duggan's to lose. They both lose in the conference championship. It's like for their perfect Heisman narrative to fit, it's like everybody's lost except for Georgia and Stetson. So it's like Michigan didn't lose, but Blake Corum, they also won 2 games without him. So it's like, I guess that hurts his case. And like you said, it just being a quarterback award now, which is obviously it's been a flawed system for a long time. I'm just like, it's time for Stetson to get that same flawed logic going his way.
Well, I was going to say, and we can put a bow on it here, is that I think if you just remove Stetson Bennett's name and JT never loses his job last year and he doesn't get hurt and he's not banged up, and JT Daniels has the exact same run Stetson's on, and JT has the exact same stats that Stetson has this year, I think he wins the Heisman as the favorite. I don't think it's a question.
May have won it twice.
Yeah.
Honestly. Like, seriously. Like, I think
I'm not kidding. I was
much,
thinking about that this week. I think
so much
JT
is made of him being a walk-on and
size and not being an NFL quarterback
and not being a 5-star recruit and all that. Yeah, so much is made of that. And it's funny, too, because he's called a former walk-on. It's like, this guy's been on scholarship since 2019. Like, George has thought he was scholarship worthy for a while now.
He's older than Jalen Hurts, who's out here maybe going to the Super Bowl this year. The guy has been on scholarship and has used up all kinds of financial aid. The man has used up. I don't know what he's taking these days. What was he taking this fall? Do we know?
I don't know. I think he's the same age as Burrow and Lamar Jackson, I want to say.
That's insane. Hendon Hooker also around there. I just want to know what Stetson Bennett was taking this semester. What classes is he doing at UT?
But that's a good question. I know Leinart was taking ballroom dancing his last year at USC. But we haven't even talked about Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams is my prediction to win it. I think he kind of feels like a lock at this point. But yeah, so we haven't even mentioned the guy that we think is gonna win the award, because it's all about Stetson. Like, that's the biggest thing with the outrage. All the outrage I see on Twitter is just like, Heisman doesn't mean anything anymore. It's like, oh, Heisman is garbage. All this. It's like, Stetson's not even going to win. So, like, why are we mad that he's going to finish, like, 4th or 3rd in the Heisman? Like, who cares?
I think a lot of Tennessee fans are just mad at how this all ended for Hendon, right? Like, he's just been this warrior getting Tennessee back. He gets hurt. They missed the playoff. Like, it's just a really rough way for Hendon's career to end in Knoxville. I think that's...
I understand that, and I think maybe this will be what we need. Maybe the Stetson will just go so deep. Maybe he will win it, and people are like, you know what? This is the final straw.
That man's not winning.
We
Do
can't.
we really think he's gonna win? Like,
no, I don't. But I'm saying if he does, then people can look, we need to have a come to Jesus moment here about the Heisman and what award we want it to be. We don't want this little walk on winning it. I don't care how good his story is.
Yeah.
Give it to the best defensive lineman or just someone like that in the country. But yeah, I'm with you. Jalen Carter, Heisman moment, just picking up another grown man, and instead of suplexing him to the ground like he could have and potentially paralyzing him, he just picked him up. He was like, we're gonna blow the whistle. You want me to throw him down? I'll throw him down, but we could just blow the whistle.
Do you remember at North Georgia when did you play intramural flag football with us?
I don't think I was on your team.
No, but were you on another team?
I dabbled. Yeah, I didn't play on your team, but
okay.
I had some solid moments out there on that flag football field.
Well, didn't we all? And when I say didn't we all, I remember I ran an out route. And the reason I bring this up is because it reminded me of what Jalen did on Saturday, which is I ran an out pattern, caught it, and turned up field. Like, this was a quick, like, 5-yard out. Turned up field, and this big dude who played football in high school forgot it was flag football and just picked me up. Like, he just came at me, wrapped up. He didn't go for the flag at all. Like, full-on wrap, just went full tackle mode. Picked me up, slammed me to the ground. Like, full-on picked me up and took me to the ground. And I could tell that he completely forgot what was happening. Like, I wasn't really mad. It was jarring because it happened so quick. And it wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't bad either. But whatever. But I just thought about that where he had me
kind of
up
liked
in the
how
air.
he slammed you down?
No, I'm saying he, like, had me up. I was kind of, like, just jarred by the whole thing of, like, not expecting it. Like, have you ever...
It's like for sure. That's
it's
the
like
worst
when you pick
part.
up a bottle and you think it's going to be full and it's actually empty and you just, like, kind of, like, grab it really quick and you're like, whoa, that was not what I thought was in there. That's what I felt when the dude just lifts me off the ground where I'm like, what? Like, just flashbacks to me playing football as a kid up until 9th grade. And I was like, nope. And your life just flashes before your eyes because, like, I'm not wearing any pads. Like, this man has taken my life into his hands and we'll see how this goes. It's a jarring feeling.
I'd be pretty hostile. So it's like, what are we doing? We're playing flag football. You see the flags?
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Well,
it's like my logic around, like, fair catches, like catching punts. I feel like is like the scariest thing in all of football to me, because it's like they're not allowed to hit you, but that doesn't mean they're not going to hit you. So it's like you wave your hand, have a fair catch all you want, but you could still just get rocked, and you're just standing there, like I don't know, you're just a sitting duck out there.
That's true. Matt Green, this is weird. We don't have actual games to preview on this pod, but as folks see in the title, we are doing a theme episode. We'll be doing a lot of theme episodes throughout the off season and in between these breaks between bowl games and the playoff and things like that. But thing I want to do, we've been holding this off for a couple weeks, and it was good timing because we get another big monumental shift in the coaching ranks with Jeff Brohm leaving Purdue for Louisville that we'll get to in a second. But we're going to do our CFB coaching changes overreactions pod. So strong overreactions, but this is my gut things. I was thinking about this for the last couple weeks and my takes on this. And I have 4 coaching changes and I have some strong takes on this. You've got 3, but I think this is a fun exercise. I know you're more the measured CFB analyst on this pod. I'm more of like, let's just burn it all down. The Joker. Some men just want to watch the world burn. And I think for me, I mentioned Louisville. I want to start here, Matt Green. Here's my take. Here's my overreaction. You ready for this?
Hit me.
Louisville won the hiring cycle by hiring Jeff Brohm.
Wow, now that is a hot take.
I think it's the best hire this cycle. Jeff Brohm, obviously a Louisville legend. Been there before. Quarterbacked Mr. Louisville. I think he's from Louisville. Played high school there. Louisville has significant NIL money. It's how they got the 5-star running back who was there briefly before now tonight going to Texas A&M and sticking with the Adidas route. But, like, Louisville's a sleeping giant. The ACC is wide open. We saw that this year. We've seen it the last 2. Wake Forest and Pitt in there last year. Scott Satterfield took over a really, really bad situation. If you go back and look at what Bobby Petrino left this Louisville program in, it was bad. Read the stories about it. Talk to people in Louisville. It was bad. The way things ended with Bobby Petrino and the talent drain and all that. Scott Satterfield won a lot of football games at Appalachian State for several years. I think he's going to be okay. Just not a good fit. He interviewed for South Carolina. It didn't go over well. Rubbed people the wrong way. He was dead man walking. Jeff Brohm got Purdue to the Big Ten title game this year. Purdue. Do you know how hard it is to get to...
I think we need an asterisk. Not to interrupt you, but what was this? An 8-5 team?
8-4.
8-4 getting to the Big Ten championship.
We had a 9-3 team go in the SEC this year.
Big Ten West was awful this year. I'm just going to say it.
Okay, Purdue. What I'm saying is had never won the West prior to Jeff Brohm being there.
That's fair.
He got Purdue in the NIL era, and I'll mention this more. Purdue is a smart school, man. Like, it's an engineering school, hard school to get into, hard school to stay at, just a hard school to recruit for. It's going to be a hard school to win at. You see it at Northwestern, Georgia Tech, Stanford, all that. They have significantly less resources than what he is walking into at Louisville. I just look at the landscape. Clemson, shaky. You look everywhere else. Florida State may have broke through a little bit. We'll see. There is an opening. Jeff Brohm is immediately the second best coach in this conference. Immediately. Louisville.
But what is that saying in the ACC, though?
What that's saying is, I think there's a quick path to them being a college football playoff team. Like, they're right there where Louisville goes from like 500 football. He's taking over a pretty solid situation now. They were going 7-5, 8-4. And they were probably in good shape to go 8-4 next year with Scott Satterfield. Like, they were moving in the right direction with Satterfield. He is not taking over a Nebraska situation where you're like, all right, it's going to take a little bit. Like, it's not, it could have gone way worse. He's not taking over a program that's just on the fritz and he's having to get it off life support. No, that's not what's happening here. I think he's going to win right away at Louisville. And I think it's the best hire in this cycle because of the connections, the NIL part of it, the fact that this man can coach, the fact that offenses have always been great, whether it's Western Kentucky, Purdue. Winning at Purdue is hard. It's even harder in this era. And he won a lot. 8 games this year, 9 games last year. I think Jeff Brohm he's probably one of the 5-10 best coaches in the sport. And Louisville just got him back home. I think we look back and we're like, oh shit, Louisville is back. And Louisville is a really, really good football program right away here. If I'm a Louisville fan, I'm extremely excited about the future of the football program because I think they're going to be really good really quickly. And I think the ACC is wide open for the taking. That's my overreaction number 1.
Wow. You want me to hit you with my first overreaction?
Yeah, where are we going?
First coach in this cycle that will take a team to the college football playoff is Luke Fickell.
Oh, wow. No
Yes.
Jim Leonard, and you're not worried.
I just think Luke Fickell, he showed what he could do at a place like Cincinnati. Like, Wisconsin isn't just a powerhouse, but like they've just been a very, very good program for a long time. I think the fact that Luke Fickell did what he did with Cincinnati, and it's not like Cincinnati was just some mediocre program. Like, every coach they've had basically has gone to a big time Power 5 job, but he took them to a higher level than I think Brian Kelly did, than Butch Jones did, than Mark D'Antonio did. Like, I just think I'm a huge Luke Fickell fan, and I think Wisconsin is just already good. Like, what did they finish this year? 7-5, and it was just an absolute disaster of a season. Like, they were awful for like the first 2 months or so, and you just look and it's like, oh yeah, they ended up just as good as all the other mediocre teams in the Big Ten West. Like, I think as soon as Luke Fickell is in, I think Wisconsin is going to become a more legitimate contender in the West.
Can I counter that take?
Hit me.
I don't think any of these coaches who've been hired are ever going to the playoff.
Oh, I thought you had another take about a certain Coach Prime.
Overreaction. That's an overreaction take. But my gut, like, I should, in a 4-team playoff, I should pivot out of that. In the 4-team playoff era, I don't think any of these programs have a path to the playoff, even with these.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, the 4-team playoff is, I guess I didn't even really consider that when I was talking about my prediction, because multiple coaches here could take the team to the playoff. So I should
clarify. Yeah.
If that's the criteria, I feel even better about Luke Fickell, because Wisconsin has been damn good at finishing like top 8 to 10. It's that top 4 that they can't quite get to.
I would lean Hugh Freeze, but my number 1 is still Deion Sanders. I think Deion gets to the playoff first, which leads me to my Deion take. I have a Deion Sanders take. A lot of people are talking about the Jackson State aspect of this and leaving Jackson State, but Monty Jones, I think, had the best take on this. Go check it out. He was on like CNN, I think, when he was talking about that, and he talked about it on the right time. But like Bomani a lot, and he had a really good, fascinating take on the Deion Sanders decision. But you look at it, man. 5-star recruiting prospect with Winston Watkins. He's 15 years old. Never been to Colorado. Committed to Deion already. 5-star kid. IMG. we've seen it before. Like, they won a national title in the early 90s. We know they have it. We know that it's a beautiful place. Colorado has one of the more beautiful, underrated stadiums. It's in a beautiful part of the country. It's close enough to Texas. It's close enough, like, where they can recruit to Southern California. They've done it in the past. They can do it again. It's a unique spot. The Pac-12, as we've seen, loves to cannibalize itself. Guess who's leaving the Pac-12 very soon? USC and UCLA. That's opens up California a little bit more for them, where it's like, you're the Pac-12 conference. You look at it and you're like, is it Utah? You can out-recruit Utah. That's their main rival. That might be the creme de la creme in the Pac-12 over the next couple of years is Utah and Colorado, where Utah is anti-flash and just physical smash mouth, and Colorado is just all flash all the time. He's not shying away from his expectations here. And in the NIL era, and when you read the early reporting on this, there is not a bigger NIL coach rock star right now than Deion Sanders. And I don't know how much he's going to translate from Jackson State, because I think some people are overblowing that, where it's like he has experience. Like, kind of. Like, Jackson State's a little bit different. Like, we'll see how it's like we saw the Montana coach who went to, I think it was San Diego State for a couple years, and he really flamed out. He was either there or UNLV, but it was like, no, it's one thing to win in the Big Sky year over year and to like dominate there. It's another thing to dominate the Power 5 level. Like, it's just different. So we'll see. It doesn't mean it can't happen. It just means we can see it. So let's just not act like Deion Sanders is a sure thing as a head coach. But he went out and hired Kent State's offensive coordinator. Very good hire, because Kent State has
head coach.
Head coach, excuse me. Yes. Big move. It's like, I'm not messing around. Deion is not messing around. His his opening statement to the players was like, y'all probably, like, it's one of the more insane things I've ever watched. Like, if I was a player in the room, I'm like, did I just get fired from college football? What just happened here? Where you're like, what just happened? Did my coach just tell me I'm not good enough for this program anymore? Like, it's time to go. Like, other people are coming in, and like, I'm hitting the portal hard. I'm recruiting hard, and most of you guys are probably out of here. But like,
I'll be honest, I didn't mind it at all. Like, I see a lot of outrage about it.
I don't outrage. I thought it was hilarious. But if I'm a player there, like, I'm just like, if you're a player or you're a parent, you're like, what's happening right now?
Yeah. But I think it's like in this NIL era, like if we want these guys to be professionals, like we'll start paying them. It's like this is how you get treated like a professional. Like,
I don't care if your dad's Josh McCown. Like, my son is now QB1. Get him out of here. Like, whatever.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like, I brought my quarterback with me. It's like I got some guys. You guys might want to hit the portal. I saw something. Someone commenting because he said like no hats and no hoodies, and there's this dude in the back that just kind of slowly takes his hat off. Like, but the funniest part to me was like whatever he said, and they like kind of chanted back like team, strength, whatever. Like they were like chanting. It's like, this guy just told me that I'm not even going to be on this team. And now we're expected to, like, yell back, like, team,
he just
commitment,
told us, like, most of us are out of here. Yeah.
Smart, whatever the things he was saying. It was such an awkward situation.
But it was captivating. I was, like, ready to run a brick wall for Deion Sanders. And it had to be conflicting if you're a kid in the room, because you're like, man, I would love to play for this guy. It's a pity that he's kicking me out to bring in some transfers and some other people, some other recruits. I mean, they're just going to...
And that's Deion Sanders. Like, everything he does is captivating. It's like he just has a charisma about him. And it's like, if Lane Kiffin came in and said, you know... you guys probably just want to hit the portal, I feel like people would just rip him a new one.
Yeah.
But there's something about Deion Sanders. It's like, he's being real with me. Like,
y'all just went 1-11. Like,
like, I don't know. It's something about Deion Sanders.
What if he really did open it up? It's like, I see a lot of losers in this room. A lot of losers in this room. 1-11? 1-11 at Colorado. The place where Cordell Stewart, Chris Brown, Salam, what was it, Rashad Salam?
Rashad Salam, yeah, Heisman winner.
Yeah, like, you go up and down, you're like, this
Cordell
is
Stewart.
Yeah. Joel Klatt.
Of course.
Who was the quarterback during the Chris Brown year in the early 2000s? It wasn't Klatt. Who was it? Or was it Klatt?
I honestly, no. I think he was...
late 90s?
I want to say he was early. I want to say he's older than Cordell Stewart, but maybe not.
I think he's after Cordell.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure who it was in that. Bobby Purify is the one I always think of, because how do you forget a name like that?
Yeah, it's like Tyrone Prothro. There's just some certain college football names here. Like, I'll always remember it. But yeah, either way, I think
Montario Hardesty. That's a good one for me.
That's a good one. I think is he a running back? He was a running backs coach at Charlotte last time I saw, but that staff got fired. So I don't know where he is right now. But either way, my overreaction, I think he makes a college football playoff in 3 years or less. I think it's happening very, very quickly.
Your Pac-12 take kind of changes things a little bit, because USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten.
Yep.
I don't think I've really grasped how much that's going to change that conference. But like you're saying with California, like, I think instead of seeing all these schools clean up on Oregon and Colorado's of the world cleaning up on California talent, I think you're going to see more California talent go to the Big Ten. Like, I think that's how you get exposure. Like, you're Illinois, you're Penn State, you're now playing some games at UCLA. Like, you're being seen on the West Coast. I think it could have an effect with actually helping the Big Ten recruit California. You're seeing these games on TV all the time because your teams are playing them.
True. I just think part of it is just like, if you're a parent, it's just more travel. If you're picking USC and UCLA and you're going to Wisconsin and Iowa, and nothing is close to home really. But if you go to Colorado, you go to Oregon, like, most of your games will still be on the West Coast and will be significantly closer for a lot of family members and friends to go to.
Did you watch the 60 Minutes interview with Deion Sanders?
Mm-mm.
I mean, if you just watch that, you're just like, I'm not going to bet against this man doing anything, basically. He's just like, I've been great at everything I've ever done. You're just like, yeah, I guess he's right. He fucking played professional baseball, played professional football, so.
He's backed everything up. Like, I am not in the business of doubting Deion Sanders. Mel Tucker in 2019 got the Buffs to number 23 or number 34 in recruiting, which was the best in over a decade. Like, it can be done quickly. Mel Tucker was turning that program around pretty quickly until Michigan State was like, how about some more? Would you like some more millions? How many millions does it take to get you away from Colorado after a year? I think Colorado.
Too bold. Sorry, go ahead.
So my bold one, I think Deion's going to be in the playoff quicker than many people might expect.
2 bowl appearances in the last 15 years for the Buffaloes. It's been a while.
I'm excited. It's going to be fun. They're going to be must-see TV each week. I'm curious to see what the national TV ratings are for the Buffs, because I think it's just going to be must-see television. Also, what do if you're Sanders? Like, what if is it Shador? Is that how you pronounce his son's name?
I think that's right.
Yeah. What if he's bad? Like, he's just not a Power 5 quarterback. And he's just like, do you bench your son? How does that go?
I think Deion Sanders would bench his son in a heartbeat. I think he wants to win, and he'll do whatever it takes.
Like, it's one thing to
if he's got another guy that can play.
Yeah, I don't know. This is why coaching your child in a major sport like this and the college level, I don't know. That's got to be tough. Your next one, Matt Green.
My next hot take, if you're noticing a theme, it's because the power is about to shift, sir. The power that I'm talking about is in the Big Ten. The Big Ten East. We had our legends and the leaders there for a couple years. Wisconsin won the conference twice when they were in the leaders division. But since we split to the Big Ten East, Big Ten West, 2014, the Big Ten West has not won the Big Ten championship. And I just told you I think Luke Fickell is gonna make a playoff appearance. I think Matt Rule is going to win a Big Ten title at Nebraska. That's your overreaction here from Matt Rule. I think Matt Rule might be – I'm really high on Luke Fickell. I think Matt Rule might be the best hire of this whole offseason. Like,
wow.
I think Nebraska, we talk about sleeping giants like Tennessee and everything. Like, Nebraska's got resources. Like, they're one of the best fan bases in the entire country. They got money to spend – all that. They want this. And Matt Rule is a proven coach. I'm just kind of shocked in 2022 that they were able to get a coach that good, because like Kirby Smart, like in 2016, Kirby Smart is what he is, as Nick Saban's right-hand man, and the Georgia job opens up. I don't know that Georgia, like obviously Georgia has a lot of good resources. They're a top program. I don't know that they're necessarily the destination job if Kirby Smart didn't go to Georgia, right? Like, I think there's other huge jobs out there. Scott Frost was just such a huge commodity. There's no way he's going to Nebraska as the number one, like, hottest coach out there. There's no way he's going to Nebraska if he didn't go there. You know what I mean? So I felt like it was just kind of you got this big time candidate because he went there. He feels an attachment to his alma mater. So I wasn't really sure who they could get the next time around, and not saying they shouldn't have fired Scott Frost because he was obviously doing a terrible job, but I was just shocked that they could get a guy just kind of as proven as Matt Rule to take a program like Baylor from 1-11 to like 11-1, like 2 years later, 2-10 to 10-2, something like that. Like 2 years later, it was just incredible. So I'm huge. I'm high on Matt Rule, and I think Nebraska is a sleeping giant. Like they got some NIL money to give. Like they got a big time fan base. I think people might be sleeping on Nebraska.
Matt Rule was like, I am not going to Nebraska. I am not going to Lincoln. That's not happening. And they're like, all right, how much money? And they were like, what if we guaranteed 90%?
That's what you do to every single recruit. I'm not going to Nebraska. Okay,
yes.
How much is it going to take?
Like, I'm not going. 8 years, $74 million. 90% of it's guaranteed. He's making $9.25 a year. That's why Matt Rule is in Nebraska. That's why the guy from State College and
do you know where that ranks? That's got to be top 5, right?
It's
because I want to say Mel Tucker is like, I think Kirby, Mel Tucker, Saban, and like maybe Jimbo are like right at the top. I guess Jimbo's got to be number 1 now, right? I forgot about him.
Saban's at 11.7. Kirby's at 11.25. Okay, so it's tied with Brian Kelly at 5. Wow,
Nebraska's got some money. They got some resources. I think you're going to see the power shift to the Big Ten West. Champs? Just wait. It might take a couple years, but
I like this overreaction. This is a bold one.
I like Matt Rule.
What was your favorite Nebraska Big Ten title thus far?
Ooh. They haven't seen one. Actually, you got to go through the last 4 head coaches. I guess you got to go back to a 5th head coach to find their last conference championship. Bo Pelini did get him to a couple Big 12 appearances, a couple Big 10 appearances, but not a championship. That's why it's bold, sir.
That's true. Strong take here. I think you're gonna like this one. Tim Beck kills all of Coastal Carolina's momentum in the Sun Belt. This was a disaster hire. When I saw this under the radar, I was sick. Big Jamie Chadwell guy here. He moves on to Liberty, making $4 million a year over there. Probably one of the best G5 jobs available. Liberty's going to be in the CFP in the next 2 years, by the way. Just go ahead and pencil that one in. When the college ball playoff expands, Liberty's going to be in sooner rather than later. Coastal going with a pro-style offense hire with Tim Beck. What are you doing? You know what this reminded me of when I saw this? When Georgia Southern got too big for their britches. They were like, you know what we are tired of? Winning football games the way we win football games. Triple option's just not working for us anymore. What's Brian Van Gorder doing over there in Athens, Georgia? Let's bring him in here. Let's shake things up. We're going to be a defense-first identity. We're going to slow things down. We're going to modernize Statesboro. What happened was they didn't modernize. The program imploded, and they were like, all right, we got to go Jeff Monken. What are you doing? They go get Jeff Monken. Willie Fritz is in there. He kind of deviates a little bit. They do some triple option stuff. There's something about Coastal. That fun attack that they had that Jamie Chadwell installed should be the identity for Coastal Carolina forever. Like, that should be your identity. That offense.
But that's a super unique offense, right? Does everyone know how to run that kind of offense like that?
Promote from within. What are we doing? He's not taking the whole staff. Just promote from within.
Do we know he's not taking?
I don't think he's taking the whole staff. Either way, Tim Beck is a terrible hire. Like, this is gonna. I'm not certain of like anything flaming out more than Coastal going to a pro style scheme. This is a disaster.
Well, what do you really want Coastal Carolina to do? This isn't a destination job.
Exactly.
This is a random place that Jamie Chadwell made good for a few years.
You get the guy who, like, you just are like, Jamie Chadwell, whoever we got to bring in. Jamie, who would you suggest continue on your legacy of the fun wishbone, whatever thing you got going on here? The fun Wildcat, I forgot what it's called. You got the Greenfield, your Chanticleers. That is what you are. You are just a fun offense that...
Don't most teams have green fields?
Yeah, no, they don't. Be weird.
Teal
Part
field,
of Statesboro is you run the triple. You run a fun offense. And look, we'll see how it works with Clay Helton long term. But look, I don't like it. I hate this hire. The Tim Beck hire is terrible. I've never been more certain. Whatever the under is next year for Coastal, get it now. What a... Terrible hire. Terrible. Hate it for my Chanticleers. That's my reaction.
I don't have much to say about Coastal. I'll agree with you on that one. Hugh Freeze.
Uh-oh.
I have no idea what take to have about Hugh Freeze, sir. I want to say Hugh Freeze is going to beat Saban multiple times.
Is
that a hot take? He's done that before.
Yeah.
With less talent. I feel like Hugh Freeze is going... Here's my take. Hugh Freeze is going to win the SEC in the next 3 years, or he's going to be fired in the next 3 years. There's no in between. This is Auburn. They go all or nothing. So we're going to see one of the two things happen. They're going to go absolutely catch fire, and this team's going to be dangerous, and we're all going to be reminded, oh, yeah, Auburn is a powerhouse program. It's just kind of been a few years. Or it's just going to be as disastrous as some of the naysayers have said about this hire, and he's going to be gone in a couple of years. And maybe there's even another scandal. Who knows? But, I feel like it's just going to be either crash or burn. Or, wait, those are the worst.
Those are the same
things.
Things,
those are both the same thing. You know what I'm trying to say. Sink or swim.
Yeah. I agree with the take as to whether or not Hugh Freeze, he's either going to be an awesome hire and he's going to win big, or he's going to lose big and get in all kinds of trouble. And we're just going to, like, the stories coming out where Auburn is in a weird spot. Like, the Brian Harsin stuff was weird, man, and did not go well. You have a new AD, so that's different. We'll see how things work. It's clear that he was not their first choice, but that always doesn't mean anything. Heupel wasn't the first choice for Tennessee, and he's been great. There's all kinds of stories. Like, Clemson was not banking on Dabo Swinney being their head coach to follow Bowden, and that's been one of the best blessings in the world for them. I'm leaning more towards there's just something weird about that program right now, and I don't think they fixed all their problems. I'm not banking on Robbie Ashford being an awesome player for them right away next year with Hugh Freeze in this offense. Like, you kept Cadillac, that's good, but I don't know, he brought a lot of people from Liberty where I'm like, I don't know if that's going to be the best for Auburn. And Brian Harsin ran into this problem of bringing in too many Boise guys to Auburn. So we'll see how that works. But I don't know. I'm leaning more towards it doesn't work out for Hugh Freeze. And the SEC is a lot tougher top to bottom. I mean, we make jokes about Vanderbilt, but I mean, they almost went bowling. Mississippi State, Ole Miss, you go up and down the list, Arkansas. I think Brian Kelly and LSU aren't going anywhere. Nick Saban and Alabama aren't going anywhere. I just think that they're in for a really tough world. I mean, Georgia wasn't even what they are now when Hugh Freeze is at Ole Miss. I think he's in for a rude awakening a little bit.
Yeah, that's probably the worst thing Auburn has going for him, because with what the SEC West is, Georgia becoming this juggernaut is not helping things on the Plains.
Yeah, you get Kirby and Nick Saban on the schedule every year.
Exactly. I just feel like there's something kind of inspirational with how Auburn finished the year, and now keeping Cadillac on the staff. I feel like they kind of reminded, I don't know, maybe the college football world that, like, yeah, we're not good right now, but like this is still like a destination. It's still like a fan base that absolutely goes nuts for their team. We still have one of the loudest stadiums in the SEC. And I'm not as sold as you on the consistency moving forward of the SEC West. Like Jimbo Fisher is just an absolute
I think they'll be better next year.
Who the hell knows? They should be, but
Yeah.
like they should have been better this year.
Yeah.
Like, and with what Ole Miss was this past year, just kind of a fraud. Mississippi State, you're still not convinced that Mike Leach makes it through this offseason.
They haven't hired
like,
a new AD yet. Like people who are like, I'm just saying, wait it out.
And
how many more tweets from players?
And even if he does survive, oh yeah, that was bad. But
Yeah.
even if he does survive, it's like, what's the ceiling for Mississippi State with Mike Leach? And you said Nick Saban's not going anywhere. I mean, he has to at some point, right? This guy's like 74 years old, 72 years old or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's getting up there. So I feel like you're seeing Alabama like they're not crumbling. It's not a demise of Alabama, but they're definitely trending in the wrong direction simply because they were just so high at the mountaintop for so long. Like they're clearly not where they once were. So there is a chink in their armor if nothing else. So you're walking into a situation where Alabama isn't just firing on all cylinders at least, and Auburn is still beating them a couple times when they shouldn't have. So there's a way that Auburn plays when they play Alabama. They're not really scared to begin with, even in years where they're not good for some reason. But and Hugh Freeze has a history of beating Alabama. So I don't know. And Brian Kelly, I left that one out. Brian Kelly is LSU could start to take a stranglehold of the West if they can win the West year one where they're really not that good yet. Like LSU has the highest upside in the next like 5 years or so. But I think it's not necessarily the worst time to be coming into the SEC West at a place like Auburn, even though it has felt like a chaotic program the last couple of years.
I like it. My last one, and it'll be close to your heart, Matt Green. Tech settling for Brent Key is a bad omen for Georgia Tech's college football future.
Please elaborate on this. So, do we know all the details of Willie Fritz? Is it just that they...
So, not 100%, but if you listen to the pod yesterday with the Athletics' Jeff Schultz, we talked about this extensively and his reporting on it. Because if you remember, he was the one who broke this originally about the Willie Fritz negotiation. And I'm paraphrasing what Jeff was telling me, but ultimately, he never got 100% certainty as to if it was guaranteed money as the holdup. I know he wanted to coach the AAC championship game, and I don't think Tech wanted to wait for that long with the portal. It seems like that was a part of it too, is just the team being good and being in the AAC championship was a problem. Trying to nail it down with a lot of moving
I find
parts.
that hard to believe.
Yeah. But, I mean, again, the schedule. What are we doing with this schedule? We're having to force coaches to pick between or, like, interview for other jobs while their team's literally in an AAC champion. Like, what are we doing? That's not fair to the coach. Why are they having to do both? And it just sucks.
Yeah.
So you got to figure something out.
Bowl game's one thing. Conference championship,
Yeah.
that's still the season.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Give a speech before the conference title game that you're leaving after this whole year?
No.
It's like, no, that just sucks. But the reason I say this is because Fritz, Bill O'Brien, the holdup was guaranteed money was a part of this. And obviously they had to pay a lot of money to fire Jeff Collins, who got a huge contract, if you remember, at Georgia Tech when he was hired. They're in a different kind of position with NIL. And this was something that Jeff Schultz mentioned that I hadn't really considered. And this is a problem. This scares the crap out of me if I'm a Georgia Tech fan. And if I'm a Stanford fan. And if I'm a Northwestern fan. They have a lot of big money donors, obviously, right? Like a lot of rich people went to Georgia Tech and are working and running tech businesses, tech companies, whatever. They're doing all kinds of big stuff. Tech is one of the best schools in the country. There's a lot of money in the alumni pool there. However, the big money donors at Tennessee care about football. They go to football games. They care about Tennessee football being good. The Georgia Tech mega money guys don't care about Georgia Tech football being good. They care about getting their name on a building around campus. They care about how the academic departments are doing, how the research is going, how the academic standing is.
How's that research going, sir?
Well, I mean, like, they do all kinds of graduate scholarly like research. Like, that's part of a lot of these programs.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in a graduate school right now. Like, that's part of it. Like, you want to
Are you in grad school?
And people forget.
I've never heard you
not
mention
for much
that.
longer over here. But look, I hadn't considered that. But it's like, if that money's not coming for these schools in the NIL era, and they're not able to pivot on the collective front and get that donor base to be like, hey, we love our academics, but we're falling significantly behind in NIL, and we can't really compete if y'all don't start pushing some of your money towards the football program, because that's just how college sports are now. They're screwed. Like, I think Georgia Tech, this is my overreaction, my last one. Once the ACC folds, and I think it's still going to happen in the next 10 years. Like, we're still going to see that split apart. I think they fall in like an independent. Maybe they go down to like an FCS type thing. They go down to a CUSA. I think they're in trouble. I don't think they have the money to compete in this new world. And if they're not going to be able to maximize, and Jeff Sims just left, Jahmyr Gibbs left the year prior, I think they're going to get picked off. Brent Key was obviously the cheapest hire. The contract's not out, but if you read the tea leaves here, the reason that Willie Fritz and Bill O'Brien and a lot of the bigger names aren't the head coach right now is because Brent Key was the cheapest option. Yeah, he had a great internal story, but like, he was the interim and never had any experience and all that. You know what you also need when you have a Brent Key type coach? You need Ed Orgeron money. Ed Orgeron at LSU had Joe Brady. He had Dave Aranda. He had a booster program that would install a crazy, amazing staff around somebody like Ed Orgeron, who was the ultimate just players loved him kind of guy, right? The CEO coach. Brent Key's not getting that at Georgia Tech. He's not getting an unlimited assistant pool to just maximize his deficiencies as a coach, because he's a CEO coach. He's a offensive line guy. He's going to have to hire a really good staff around him to do everything else. This is not going to go well, man. I think Georgia Tech, if I'm a Tech fan, this signals that, like, you're going down the Washington State, Oregon State, Stanford rabbit hole, where I think the more and more we get into the NIL era and more conference realignment, I think Georgia Tech's in serious trouble.
I think to that point, I can understand what you're saying. If we get some sort of Power 5, some top 50 college football programs get together, and not all the Power 5 schools make it, Georgia Tech's definitely one of those that might miss it, not make the cutoff. But with all those unforeseen things, just keeping it at this specific hire, like, I don't see it being that bad. Like, he went 4-4 down the stretch with like basically a terrible football team. Like, they at least showed some sign of life. And I think there's something, everyone wants their Kirby Smart, man. Everyone wants to get a guy that went there. We've seen, 3 already. Brent Key went to Georgia Tech. Kenny Dillingham went to Arizona State. Who's the other one I'm forgetting? There's another big one. Your boy Louisville.
Oh, Jeff Brohm.
Jeff Brohm going to Louisville. So this is what everyone wants. Like, I feel like there is something about college programs when the head coach went there. I feel like he kind of sells the program differently. I don't hate the Brent Key hire as much as you do, because I mean, like,
Hold on, let me maximize. I don't think it's a Brent Key thing.
Coach.
I don't think it's a Brent Key thing. I think it's a sign of where the program is health-wise thing. That is what I'm saying. I think it's bigger than Brent Key.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's fair. I don't know how good of a coach they really could have gotten. I thought Willie Fritz.
If they had more money, Bill O'Brien or Willie Fritz is their coach.
Those both seemed like good hires, like more established hires than I kind of expected them to get. Brent Key seemed more
GT guy.
If you would have told me like who would there be their head coach September 3rd or something, I would have leaned more towards a Brent Key type of. Because who are they going to get? They're Georgia Tech. You know what I mean? But
they could get more if those donors cared about football, is what I'm saying.
They probably could, but they're Georgia Tech.
Like, the AJC was like, did a poll on like who did they think, I remember it was like a week or two ago, about like Brent Key should be, or do you think Brent Key should be the full-time coach at Georgia Tech? And like a lot of high school coaches clearly like Brent Key. this is not a Brent Key thing. I think obviously you saw the reaction when he was named head coach by the AD. Great reaction. Players like him. That's all great. What I am saying is, guess what? When Tennessee, when Georgia, do you know none of these programs are the least bit terrified of Brent Key in the current state of Georgia Tech athletics department? None. So when you're like, well,
why are we talking about Tennessee, Georgia Tech?
Tennessee. I'm saying if they're in a rival, no, they recruit the same guys, is what I'm saying. And they're like Tennessee, the majority of their players come from the state of Georgia. You know that, right? Every year, the majority of Tennessee players are recruited from the state of Georgia.
They're probably not recruiting the same level of players as Tennessee.
But what I'm saying is, like, when they pull these coaches, like, yeah, you can pull the Colquitt coach at Sean Calhoun or whoever and be like, do you want Brent Key to get the job? It's like, yeah, he's a nice guy. We like him. We like working with him. The players don't care if their high school coach likes this. No, they're following NIL. They're following if they're going to play right away in a big conference. Players know that the SEC is the number one conference in the country and the closest thing to the NFL. Like that, they know the Big Ten, the SEC are where the dollars are and that sort of thing. They know that. So Georgia Tech can hire like the fan favorite or coach favorite in high school football in Georgia or whatever, but like Tennessee is still going to beat the crap out of them in recruiting. Georgia's obviously going to steamroll Georgia Tech in recruiting. North Carolina now with Mac Brown. They've got South Carolina, Clemson, Alabama, and Auburn. They're all going in the state of Georgia.
Well, once you start talking about those, like they're not recruiting the same level of player as
but there's only so many guys, and if like you can't win your state, you're screwed.
The Kentuckys and the South Carolinas, and even like Tennessee and Auburn, like they're recruiting some of those same players. Like Clemson and Alabama and Georgia, it's like they're not even competing over the same players as Georgia Tech is. Like it's just not even. And that's honestly one of the issues I had with Brent Key's press conference is it's like this isn't Michigan, Ohio State. Like you take the job. Oh, we're gonna beat those sons of bitches in Ann Arbor or whatever you say. Like, or they probably wouldn't even say
Michigan
Ann Arbor.
And Eastern Michigan.
Like Georgia Tech, it's like don't even talk about Georgia right now, bro. Like we just want to be like a competitive football program again. Don't even associate us with Georgia yet. Like that was the funniest part to me. It's just like him bringing up Georgia. Like I respect him. He played, I think, from '97 to 2000. He beat Georgia 3 times.
It was a different sport then. It was a different time. You're not catching Kirby. Like, none of that's happening. Georgia has a stranglehold on this state. It is over. Georgia Tech going this route, here's what they should have done. Jamie Chadwell, what does it take to get this offense? Jeff Monken at Army should have been call number 2 if Jamie Chadwell's going to Liberty. We're going back to the triple option. Do you know who's the 4th winningest coach in Georgia Tech football history? 4th.
Paul Johnson.
He
4th?
won.
I would have thought he was higher, honestly.
Yeah, well, the other 3, one of them's named Bobby Dodd Stadium. Like, you go up and down the list.
Probably back in the day.
Yeah, you go back through the list. Like, Paul Johnson won a bunch of games. Georgia Tech has to pivot to the air raid or the triple option full time. You are Washington State at this point. You need to think like Washington State, operate like Washington State. Stanford kept trying to do the pro style stuff. You can't do it anymore. You cannot get those kind of players to run that kind of scheme anymore. Georgia Tech will never have the players ever again in this NIL era and way of recruiting to go up head over head, like just go matchup to matchup, pro style for pro style against Georgias of the world, the Tennessees of the world, whoever. You're going to get your ass kicked. Like, you have to do something different. You have to be the triple. You have to be the air raid. You have to do what Jamie Chadwell does with his offense. That's why I was like, Jamie Chadwell actually makes the most sense for Tech. Like, that's who I would hire, and he has recruiting chops, obviously, in Carolina. But, like, you have to think of yourself as a Sun Belt team for the rest of your time. You are a Sun Belt team in an ACC conference. Like, you have to think that way. And because the resources aren't coming. And instead, they're like, we're going to just get ground and we're going to go to battle for these recruiting kids in Colquitt County and Valdosta, and we're going to go find them. We're going to go against Georgia and Alabama and Auburn. It's like, no, you're not.
Jeff Collins, what am I trying to say? Walked. He kind of crawled so that the Georgia Tech program could run.
No.
He did. First things first, he got him with Adidas. He got him those Adidas uniforms. They're no longer Russell Athletic. Huge
set
step
the program
forward.
back. Paul Johnson.
Huge step forward. No. Now you can be recruited by Georgia Tech. Maybe they're not a good program, but they don't run the triple option. If I legitimately think I can play in the NFL, I'm not considering a college that runs the triple option. Like it wasn't going to be pretty. It was just going to take so much to go from triple option to running a more modern offense. And you can hardly even say they are running a more modern offense because it was so terrible under Jeff Collins. I'm not even sure what offense they're trying to run.
Yeah.
But they're not running a triple option anymore. And while
they went to the Orange Bowl.
I understand it hurt wins and losses in the short term, but
the long term. How long was Jeff Collins there?
Like what, 3 years?
4, I think.
Not very long, but I'm saying that's the short term. Jeff, if you kept Paul Johnson for another 10 years, yeah, you're probably going to have 2 or 3 more good seasons.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It is, but if you can get that no one wants to be good 2-3 times every 10 years.
Hold on, what was the bad year? Hold on. Paul Johnson went 9-4, 10-3, 6-6, 8-5, 7-7, 7-6. He had 1 3-9 year in 2015. He followed that up by going 9-3 the following year. What are we talking about?
There was a lot of mediocre seasons there.
You would kill for that if you're Tech now.
But
he won at least 9 games 3 times.
I know it's hard. He's such a hard person to evaluate because it did work a lot, but it made it such a joke of a program that just couldn't recruit anybody.
What, twice? He beat Georgia what, twice, 3 times?
Yeah, he beat Georgia twice. Yeah. Wait, maybe you're right. It was 3 times.
Yeah.
He beat Rick twice, and he beat Kirby his first year.
Yeah.
And so that's you're all valid points you're making. But at the end of the day, the triple option is not where any self-respecting 4-star recruit wants to go. So it's like he
puts you in the league.
No,
Jonathan
who did he
Dwyer
put
got
in the
drafted.
league?
Stephen Hill got drafted.
And none of the guys that got drafted
Thomas.
none of those guys that got drafted were players that he recruited though. Josh Nesbitt, like Dwyer and Demarius Thomas, they were all guys that were just trapped. They were there from the very start, and then once he started to get his players in, they just got worse and worse.
No, they didn't because
they had that pop-up year in 2014, but that was pretty much it. Like there was no like
they went 9-3 after that.
I'm just saying. Georgia Tech football, when you ran a triple option offense, they were just a joke of a team. Like
Are you a joke if you run the air raid and win a bunch? Is Mississippi State a joke?
No, because I think big time high school quarterbacks want to go somewhere where they can throw the ball 40 times a game. If you're a big time running back,
why would you not want to play in the triple?
Because it doesn't prepare you for the NFL. That's not the type of running you're ever going to be doing.
We're in an RPO league now, man.
You're not running the option, like actual just like running alongside the quarterback waiting for a pitch. Like that's not the offense you're running in the NFL. So, like I said, they had to take like multiple steps backward to hopefully go forward. It was a weird situation they were in with Paul Johnson because his offense did work. It would be like consistently top 5 in the country in rushing yards, but it was just so terrible.
You just hated losing to him. You hated losing to the triple. There's nothing more soul-crushing than losing to the triple.
I don't have any sort of like hostility towards Paul Johnson. It's just like
you have hostility towards the triple.
It just made Georgia Tech just unable to recruit any offensive position. Like this isn't preparing an offensive lineman for the next level. It's not preparing the quarterback. It's not preparing the running back. And it's damn sure I'm not going to go there if I'm a wide receiver.
2016.
And they didn't even have a tight end position, so
who cares?
They're not getting them either.
Don't need them. You're Georgia Tech.
Yeah, what does that mean? I don't even know.
You're now a academic first NIL loser school. Like you just gotta deal with like you gotta think small. You gotta think small at Georgia Tech. Like how do we find ways to win football games with a dearth of talent? Northwestern is facing this.
And you saw Brent Key go 4-4 with this awful talent that they had there. What did they start? They went 4-4. What did they start? 1-6. I'm struggling with that math there.
No, there's no way it's that.
That's not many. 1-3 or something. Way too many.
Yeah,
I was way off there.
You did a whole 17-game season.
Yeah. What am I thinking? It started 1-3, ends up 4-4, beat a couple ranked teams or one ranked team. So I don't know.
Great.
He is a Georgia Tech guy. He has that going for him.
I can't sign on for it. Terrible hire and bad state of the future for Georgia Tech.
I think it's only a terrible hire if the Willie Fritz negotiations truly were like almost a done deal if one thing, if it was really like a stipulation, like kind of rumored that he wanted to coach in the AAC championship and they didn't want that, then it's an absolute like awful hire. Like, what are you doing? You're not going to let this guy coach for one more week for potentially the next 5 years of your program? Like, you're really going to let that like hold your program back? Like, that would just be stupid.
And again, I don't want to misquote Jeff, so just listen to the pod. I was paraphrasing what Jeff was saying, but just go back and listen to the Jeff pod yesterday. But
and who knows what the dollars and cents were, if like how far off they were, but like Willie Fritz, I felt like that seemed like the type of, you got to get creative, like potentially go get the next up-and-coming coach that he could potentially be, and obviously he has some history in the state of Georgia. But I don't know. I thought that would have been a big-time hire, but I'm not as negative on the Brent Key hire as you are.
That's why we call it overreactions in this pod.
That was a little bit of a reaction. Yeah, you're basically talking about Georgia Tech being an independent program.
Yeah.
Like that was the definition of an overreaction.
Do you know it's a better program right now? I have more faith in the health. Liberty over Georgia Tech. Like, who would have ever thought that? Like,
yeah, there's several G5 schools that you would just say are healthier college football programs than Georgia Tech is right now.
Matt Green, that was fun exercise.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. I'm sure there's more coaching carousel continued to go. Oh, and you guys lost the OC.
Yeah.
Where's he going?
South Florida.
South Florida. So how do Tennessee fans feel about that?
It's fine.
Alex Golish. Am I
Yeah,
pronouncing that right?
Yeah, Alex Golish. He was great. I think he won Assistant of the Year this week too. Assistant Coach of the Year. But no, he's great. It'll be a loss, but it seems like they're not going to hire an outside OC, and they're just going to promote from within on the OC front. Joey Halsey is still here. He's been quarterback's coach and been Heupel guy for a really long time, and might be the time. He's 36. Golish is 38, so he's been with Heupel for a while, and he might get promoted. But Heupel's offense, he's going to be very selective about who he hires to replace. But Nico and everybody's fine. They just got a big 6'6" tight end from UC Davis who started at Cal, who's just going to be a physical freak for this group next year. And Golish coached tight ends too, so the main thing is I think Tennessee's going to hire a tight ends coach to replace him. But the offense is still Heupel's offense, and I'm not all that concerned about it. Seems like this is going to be fine. The Nathan Leacock moved up to a top 100 player on Rivals, and Devin Hobbs moved into the top 60 in the latest Rivals 2023 recruiting ranking. So Tennessee is now up to number 8 in this class. Top 10. Okay. I think they're number 10 on 247. It's a good class, man. Talent everywhere. Balls are
time.
back.
The Gators just got a 5-star commit as well.
Yeah.
In the 2025 or is he 2024?
2024. Yeah. DJ Longway.
Yeah. So, and then there's a couple other coaches we didn't touch on. Barry Odom going to UNLV.
What a disaster. Why would you leave Arkansas for that job? Everyone gets fired there. Marcus Arroyo just got fired for what? Almost getting them to bowl eligibility? Like, this program has been horrific forever. Why would you take that job?
Basically forever.
You're getting fired again in like 2 to 3 years. Just stay at Stan Pittman.
Get that head coach money, man. Trent Dilfer at UAB.
Terrible hire.
Really curious to see where that goes. UAB
this is fun. I'm just going scorched earth here. Terrible hire.
They seem like a way more established program than to go out and get a guy like
also,
Trent
the players
Dilfer.
all wanted Coach Vincent. Not really great when they're just like, no,
right?
we'll go our own way.
And then the school that is just like the New York Mets. Not New York Mets. They're not nearly. But they want to win the back page. That's what I'm trying to say. If you've heard of him, they want you as the head coach. The Florida Atlantic Owls. Get Lane Kiffin. Get Willie Taggart. Now Tom Herman. Obviously, Lane Kiffin, that worked out really well. But now Tom Herman going to FAU. Like, who knows? Like,
do you know what that place is, though? It's like the retirement. It's not even a retirement community. It's like, have you had a tough time?
Boca.
Yeah, have you had a tough time in college football coaching? Are you ready to get away for a couple of years? Enjoy some good Boca Raton weather. Enjoy the beach. No expectations. Just win 8 or 9 games a year, and we're good. Come to Boca Raton.
I had a friend from high school that moved to Boca, and she like lived down there for a few years, and she was just like, terrible. Like she moved back up. It's like just old people everywhere. Just that's.
Is it Naples? Is it around Naples? I don't actually know where it is.
No, Boca's on the Atlantic coast.
I thought Naples was too.
You could be right. I'm not 100% sure on that. Which I should know that too. I'm not going to get into it on the pod, but some of the listeners on the pod will know. I had an epic NCAA football dynasty.
Oh, I didn't know where this was going.
A university named Naples in Naples, Florida, turned into a whole thing for like 20 years on NCAA football. So I feel obligated. Yeah, because I mean, you can go into like 2025. You know, like you can keep that thing going.
Is this thing still going?
No, I mean,
can you pick it back up when NCAA the new football game comes out next year? Are you going to pick this up where you left off?
No, because that was PS2 days. Like that was way back. It was funny because my buddy, who's a huge Florida fan, you can create a coach when you're in the dynasty. You can like create another coach,
right? And
so we created like a whole storyline that he was my OC, and then he got the head job at Florida, and Florida was like our big rival. But yeah, it was good times, but. So I should, as a diehard Naples fan, I should know where Naples is, but I honestly don't.
Well, there you go. That's your homework for the next pod, Matt Green. Figure out where Naples and Boca Raton is.
I'm sure we can. I know Boca is. It's near West Palm, I want to say. So that's definitely on the Atlantic side. Let's look up Naples, Florida on a map real quick. This is just riveting radio, I'm sure. But I want to say it's down like south of like Tampa is what my gut says. So let me see. Yeah, Naples is on the Gulf side. Yeah, it's south of Fort Myers actually. So it's way down there.
Okay.
Like basically it looks like it's like the last city before everything's just swamp down like the bottom of Florida. So with the Everglades, it is. I'm not like talking shit about Florida. It literally is like a national park. It's all swamp. But yeah, so Naples, that's southeast or southwest Florida, and Boca is south. Boca is like right between Miami and West Palm.
There you go.
There's your geography lesson near Fort Lauderdale. There you go. I'm looking at a map.
I love it. This was great. Man, I did not think we would end with a geography lesson.
These are the things, yeah. So I don't know how we got on that. FAU, Tom Herman. We'll see how it works out. But we'll see who the next coaches are, and if Stetson Bennett can pull out that Heisman Trophy. Honestly, if he had 28 touchdowns, I think he's 100% a lock for the Heisman Trophy. If he had 28 passing touchdowns, that give him 35 total touchdowns. I think that's
still one less than Hendon Hooker in more games.
But it's the narrative. He's the quarterback on the number one team. He's a winner.
Well, like I said, I think if it's
games. That's what it comes down to.
JT Daniels, he wins it easily. If it's JT, he wins it easily.
Other than like if he has the same, like theoretically, I understand what you're saying. But since he is a different type of player, he has the rushing elements. He's got the rushing touchdowns. But if JT Daniels did do the same thing theoretically, I agree with you. As a 5-star prospect, there would be no question. And it's kind of interesting, honestly, when you hear people talk about Georgia. It's almost like, did you not watch what happened like last postseason when you kind of had all these question marks? Like, but if they get into a shootout, can they really, when they win that kind of game? It's like, what on earth makes you think you're going to get into a shootout with this team? Like they just held the most explosive offense in the country to 13 points this year. And they scored 50 on LSU in the SEC championship. Like it feels like just lazy narratives of just like, and it's all because Stetson isn't a 5-star. It's like if JT Daniels was the quarterback with the exact same production, like I just don't think there would be these questions about but Georgia's passing offense, like what can they do through the air, like you see them there. It's one of the better passing offenses in the country this year.
Whew. Matt Green. Fun times.
It was good times. And I can't go too hard against Hendon Hooker because Hendon Hooker had an amazing season. So that's why I hate how so much of this debate has been Stetson versus Hendon Hooker. Because
and CJ Stroud not catching any strays. What are we doing?
Exactly.
Send the strays to CJ Stroud.
And if CJ Stroud, if they didn't make the playoff, is he in this is he a finalist?
It's a good question. We'll never know.
I don't know, but I think, and you don't, and like you said, you don't. It's hard to knock guys for the system they play in because that's the system they play in. So that's the only thing we have to base him off. Like, I don't know what he could do in another system. This is the one he plays in. But I think after a while, when you see every Ohio State quarterback put up elite numbers, and then none of them are good in the NFL, obviously Justin Fields looks like the exception to that. But it's hard not to think, yeah, but is he really that elite, or is this just the latest Ohio State quarterback?
For sure. Matt Green, always a pleasure, and I will talk to you in a couple days.
Yes, sir.